Hello and welcome to Dining with Death. This episode is on my playlist, Dining with the Departed, where we talk about famous or infamous people who have passed. We discuss their lives, their careers, what they're famous or infamous for, and then I eat their last meal or their favorite food. I'm Stacey Lee. Let's begin. Brittany Ann Murphy was born on November 10th, 1977 in Atlanta, Georgia, to Sharon Kathleen Murphy and Angelo Joseph Bertolotti. Her parents divorced when she was just 2 years old, and then Brittany's mother moved to Edison, New Jersey, which is where Brittany was raised. Apparently, Brittany's father has a very shady past and lots of legal problems, so much so that her mother chose not to put his name on Brittany's birth certificate, and Brittany never used his last name. She attended the Vern Fowler School of Dance and Theater Arts in Colonia, New Jersey, beginning in 1982, but Brittany had been singing, dancing, and acting since she was a very little girl. In 1991, Brittany and her mother moved to Los Angeles so that Brittany could further pursue her acting. There's a story about how when Brittany was 5 years old, she and her mother saw Burt Reynolds in a restaurant, and Brittany walked up to him and told him, "I'm going to be a star too someday." That was very bold for a 5-year-old, but it seems to be indicative of who Brittany was. She knew what she wanted, and she was determined she was going to be in the movies. It was slow going for a few years. Brittany got her first acting job when she was 13 years old, starring as Brenda Drexel in the series Drexel's Class. That show only lasted one season before being canceled. She then played Molly Morgan in a very short-lived spin-off of the Torkelsons called Almost Home. She had some small appearances in Parker Lewis Can't Lose, Blossom, Sequest 2032, Frasier, and Murder One, and then she landed recurring roles on Sister Sister, Boy Meets World, and Party of Five. In 1997, Brittany got a role in a Broadway play. She made her big acting debut there as Catherine in a revival of Arthur Miller's play, A View from the Bridge, which also starred Anthony LaPaglia and Allison Janney. She was starting to have a little success, and she became known as a reliable actress. She was professional, she learned her lines, she showed up prepared, she was building a name for herself. Brittany Murphy's big break came in 1995 when she was chosen to star in Clueless, which of course became a massive hit. Clueless stars Alicia Silverstone, and Brittany played the character of Ty, a shy newcomer to the high school that serves as the backdrop for the film. In the film, Alicia Silverstone plays the popular girl, Cher, and she kind of takes Brittany under her wing. She gives the character Ty a makeover, and that secures her spot among the cool kids at the school. The casting director for Clueless later said of Brittany that in real life, she was painfully insecure, that she was fragile, and that you, quote, just wanted to look after her. When Clueless came out, Brittany Murphy was body shamed. People called her fat. Oh, lordy, the 90s was a terrible, terrible time for body image. I was in my 20s in the 90s. I was teaching dance 4 or 5 days a week. I was maybe 125, maybe 130 pounds tops. I was like a size 5, and I was constantly trying to lose weight. Everybody in the 90s wanted to look like they were 5 minutes away from starving to death. It was miserable. You could not be skinny enough in the 90s. I remember one time I saw an interview later on with actress Courtney Thorne-Smith. She was on Melrose Place in kind of the height of this heroin chic skinny thing. She said there were days in her life where she was so hungry, she wasn't sure she was going to be able to get through her days at work filming Melrose Place, but she would only have a bottle of water, like as in a bottle of water instead of a meal. She wasn't even eating, she was just drinking water. It was nuts. I just honestly think it gave so many people body issues. I for sure had body image issues. It took me a long time to get over that. Now I eat all the cheese and I have a little deep fried food and I live my life because, honey, life is too short. And now at a size 10 on the back end of a very serious illness that I've never even talked about here, I am constantly body shamed here on YouTube. Honey, I have been through a sickness that would put most people in the grave, and I don't give a shit if you think I need to lose weight. I am happy, I do what I want, and while we're on the subject, let me give you a little advice. Whenever anybody comes for your looks, take a good, hard look at that person. I find the first people in my real life to comment on my weight have something about them that would not be considered classically attractive. It's like, honey, it's okay if your ears stick out to here, you got 5 hairs on top of your head. I love you the same. You don't need to point out to me that you can see I've put on 20 pounds. If you don't think I can be a bitch, I'm sorry, I have some bad news for you. But I get really, really tired of the way people talk about weight and the way people talk about anyone that isn't, stick skinny. It's ridiculous to me. It is nobody's business what somebody else weighs or does with their body or eats, and we need to get over the topic entirely. So love yourself, damn it, and be happy. There is always something to be grateful for, no matter what, right? Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. And now back to Brittany Murphy. While Brittany was working on Clueless, her mother was diagnosed with breast cancer. And Brittany was under a lot of stress, worrying about her mother. But fortunately, her mother did recover, and Brittany was right by her side throughout her treatment. Brittany got roles in 1996's Freeway with Reese Witherspoon and Kiefer Sutherland. And then she was in the independent comedy Bongwater in 1999. She really secured her spot as a 90s it girl when she was cast in Girl Interrupted alongside Winona Ryder and Angelina Jolie. Girl Interrupted is a film that for me kind of defines 90s culture. It was really hip to sort of romanticize mental illness back then. Mental illness wasn't spoken about in the 70s or 80s. It was very taboo. But then the 90s came along and kind of made it hip, cool in a weird way. There were a lot of films about mental illness and drug addiction in the 90s. It was kind of the first time we really saw so much of that. And it was kind of a romantic version of those things. I mean, those are very serious subjects. I hate to use the word fad, but it was kind of a fad to make movies about that stuff. Brittany was then cast in Drop Dead Gorgeous in 1999, which is a black comedy about a small-town beauty pageant. It stars Kirsten Dunst, Ellen Barkin, Allison Janney, Denise Richards, Kirstie Alley, and of course Brittany, along with Amy Adams. It was her first film role. This film has since gone on, much like Clueless, to become a cult classic. If you haven't seen it, I think you'd enjoy it. It's got a really dark sense of humor. It's a little out of my usual wheelhouse, the things I usually watch, but I still like it. Brittany Murphy's star was really on the rise. In 2001, she starred in Don't Say a Word alongside Michael Douglas, a huge A-list actor. This was a really big deal for her. Brittany had lost quite a bit of weight by this point, and there was a lot of talk about it in the tabloids. In Clueless, she's kind of baby-faced, not at all overweight, but just fuller looking. And then she got rail thin, like the kind of thin where you look at someone and kind of wince. It looks like they're hurting. They're so thin, you know? Her arms got skeletal, and because she had really big eyes naturally, they looked unusually large with every ounce of fat on her face gone. She just didn't look healthy at all, but she was far from the only actress at that time in this condition. She landed the lead role alongside Eminem in 2002's 8 Mile, and she got a lot of critical recognition for this role. She was a good actress. She had depth, and she very believably played someone who was troubled because she was a little troubled. It later came out that during the filming of 8 Mile, Brittany had had a relationship with Eminem, but there were also rumors that he was seeing Kim Basinger, who played his mother in the film. That's a little disturbing. After 8 Mile wrapped, Brittany was in a film called Just Married, and she started dating her co-star, Ashton Kutcher. The relationship lasted less than a year, but it was a pop culture moment. Both Brittany and Ashton were mega famous at the time, and the paparazzi followed them wherever they went. Ashton Kutcher said they were great friends and that he learned something from Brittany every day. He said she was the consummate professional and was, like I said, a very good actress and knew her craft well. After she and Ashton ended things, Brittany then got engaged to a talent manager named Jeff Quatnitz, but a marriage never followed, and that relationship ended as well. Brittany was starring in film after film at this point. She was in Uptown Girls, Little Black Book, Sin City. She was working constantly. Film critic Roger Ebert gave Brittany high praise, saying that she had fantastic acting talent and comedic timing, and even compared her to Lucille Ball. She starred in Spun, Never Was, and The Dead Girl, as well as Sidewalks of New York, The Groomsman, and Happy Feet. But most of you are probably familiar with her longest running role, a role where you never see Brittany. If you didn't already know this, Brittany Murphy is the voice of Luann Platter in King of the Hill. I'm a huge fan of King of the Hill. It's one of my comfort shows that I put on at night. It's either that or Bob's Burgers, Simpsons, Archer. Lately I've been on a Brooklyn Nine-Nine kick, but I love that show. I lived in Midland, Texas for a year before I moved to Austin, and Midland and Odessa kind of serve as the inspiration for Arlen, the town that King of the Hill takes place in. And they got all the details right, down to the houses that have these alleyways in between them, and everybody pulls in from the back of their house instead of, the front of your house being the garage, the back is the garage. That's that alleyway that they stand out in. Anyway, Brittany's Luann Platter is, of course, very iconic in that show. Brittany was also a singer, and she actually had a really good singing voice. If you've seen Happy Feet, the animated film with the penguins, Brittany is the voice of one of those penguins. Well, there's a music scene where the song Somebody to Love by Queen is featured. That's actually Brittany Murphy singing the lead. A lot of people think she voiced the character and someone else did the singing. No, that's her singing. She's got a very solid voice with a nice vibrato. She was a really talented woman. Brittany was in a band with another actor, Eric Balfour, called Blessed Soul, and in 2006, she and Paul Oakenfold released the single Faster Kill Pussycat that became a club hit. There started to be some signs that Brittany wasn't doing so well. She was cast in the drama Abandoned in June of 2008, but she left that production kind of under a cloud and was replaced by Rochelle Lefevre. There were reports that Brittany had been fired for being very difficult on set, tough to work with, that she caused problems. Now, Brittany always denied those claims very vehemently. In May of 2007, Brittany married a British screenwriter she had been dating for a bit. His name was Simon Monjack. There were long-standing rumors that Brittany's weight loss had a lot to do with cocaine use, and that she did in fact have a drug problem. Brittany not only denied those claims, but once told Jane magazine, "Just for the record, I've never tried it in my life." When Brittany married Simon, her life kind of changed, and not for the better. They became somewhat reclusive. She wasn't taking as many roles. She was staying home all the time. Her mother was either living with her or very close nearby, and there are reports that her mother was very concerned about her daughter. Simon seemed an odd partner for Brittany. They didn't really match up. Simon was 7 years older than Brittany, not that big of an age difference, but he looked much older than that. Not only that, people didn't even know that Brittany and Simon were dating before they got married. They were rarely seen together and didn't even announce their engagement. After they were married, that didn't change. They were hardly photographed together and didn't appear to socialize really at all. Simon Monjack had some serious legal troubles. He was accused of credit card fraud in 2005, but those charges were later dropped. In 2006, he was sued by his bank for not paying his 4 mortgages on 4 different homes. He owed about $500,000 in back payments at the time. And then in 2007, he was arrested and jailed because his visa had expired and he had failed to renew it. In 2009, Simon had a heart attack and he was taken to the hospital. It was discovered that he had a very serious heart condition and he began to undergo treatment for that heart condition. The couple stayed kind of holed up in their Hollywood mansion on the hill with Brittany's mother coming and going and not many others involved in their lives at the time. On December 20th, 2009, at about 8 in the morning, Brittany Murphy's mother walked into her house and found Brittany on the floor of her bathroom. She called 911 and paramedics arrived quickly after the call. They attempted to resuscitate Brittany but could not, so she was taken by ambulance to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. Doctors continued to work on her, trying to revive her, but they were unable to do so. Brittany Murphy was pronounced dead at 10:04 a.m. after going into cardiac arrest. An autopsy was performed the day after she died. It was found that she had died of untreated pneumonia with secondary factors of severe iron deficiency anemia. She was basically starving to death and had no iron in her blood, and her death had been complicated by multiple drug intoxication. The coroner found a lot of over-the-counter medication in Brittany's system to treat her cold. None of it was illegal. She had taken large doses of cough medicine that contained hydrocodone, acetaminophen, L-methamphetamine, and chlorpheniramine, all of which, like I said, are legal drugs. Brittany was simply so weak from her anemia that when she got a cold, it rapidly turned into pneumonia, and that, combined with the massive amounts of cold medicine she had taken, killed her. On December 24th, 2009, she was buried at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in the Hollywood Hills. Just a few months later, this entire scene was repeated again when Brittany's husband Simon was found dead on the floor of the same home. Brittany's mother later claimed that the home had toxic mold, and that's what had killed Brittany and Simon. The coroners do not agree with that. In October of 2021, HBO released a documentary entitled, "What Happened, Brittany Murphy?" It's a good documentary. Of course, I watched it preparing for this episode. People talk about Brittany, about how talented she was, that she was free-spirited and happy and full of laughter. It also talks about the brutal way Brittany was treated by the media. It was relentless. She was too fat, then she was too skinny. She was troubled. She was hard to work with. She was tortured by the press. This was a very talented woman with a lot to give who left us a great library of work, which has become her legacy. Brittany Murphy loved Thai food, and that was, in fact, her last meal. Brittany Murphy's last meal consisted of a bowl of noodles from one of her favorite Thai places and Gatorade. It makes sense if she had a cold and wasn't feeling well that she was drinking Gatorade, try to boost her electrolytes. Just really a sad story all the way around, isn't it? Something that it feels like didn't need to happen, right? I got purple Gatorade because that's my favorite. Good as ever. I can't drink things like that very often. I've alluded to it several times here on this channel when I say I don't get to eat gluten and things like that. I have a chronic disease. It's not something I've really felt like talking about here, but I mentioned it earlier, saying that I had been through a sickness that would kill a lot of people. So I no longer care about little things like whether or not someone thinks I should lose 20 pounds. They can stick it where the sun don't shine. I don't care. I've lost so many people to mental illness and to addiction and to early death and disease that I am going to live every day of my life because they didn't get to. And I think you should do the same. I am a noodle person. Noodles would be a part of my last meal. There is nothing better than a bowl of spicy noodles. I've probably got that all over my face. Noodles aren't the most dignified thing to eat. Thank you for joining me today on Dining with Death, Dining with the Departed. Like the video if you liked the video, and subscribe to my channel if you'd like to see more from me. It helps. You can also support me by joining my Patreon. That helps immensely. Stay safe and be kind to each other, and I'll see you next time on Dining with Death. Bye.